What's up YouTube, this is Sneaksy Garrett here, and today I'm going to show you how to make a small little level within the Thief 2 Dromed level editor known as Dromed 2, or just Dromed. So first off, you'll notice that I'm actually using Dromed version 1.20. This is because I am using the New Dark patch. The first release of New Dark was 1.19, which I have talked about in my other Dromed videos. So if you are new to this series, please go back and check the other video. There is a link to where you can get the New Dark patch. The latest version is actually 1.21 as of this video, but it is basically a small little hotfix patch, so I didn't opt to get that. But if you'd like, go ahead and do that. So first thing I want to talk about today is brushes. Everything within Dromed is referred to as a brush, these little lines within the views. So when you make a new file within Dromed, you will see this white square, outline squared box. This is by default already set as a fill air brush. Basically what that means is that you have a hollow room set up, or an air brush set up into the world. Now the most commonly used brushes, or operation brushes in this case, are fill air or fill solid. There are some other options in here, but I am not particularly familiar with these. I've never really used them. So what you will be using most of the time is fill solid and fill air. Fill solid, basically what that would do is, as it sounds, it makes a solid piece of geometry. So this would be useful for, say, creating a column within your room. But let's just stick with fill air for now. So you may have noticed by now that in your 3D view you're not seeing anything, you're just getting a black void. This is because by default the geometry has not been calculated yet, and so you will not see what you have created yet. You have to do something that's called portalize, or portalizing. You have to portalize your level before you can see the geometry. In addition to that, by default the 3D view is in wireframe view mode, which means that even once you've portalized, you will not see your geometry unless you set the 3D view to solid world. And I'll show you how to do that after we portalize. So first off, let's go up to Tools and Portalize. So there you go. Now I think by default the New Dark patch sets the Dromed window to be in full bright mode. Basically, there's no torches yet, light objects within the scene, but it will light up your airbrushes so you can actually see what you're doing. It's just a handy way of, while you're editing in Dromed, to see things. So I actually have mine set off, but you can toggle it on and off by going to View, and then this setting here, Toggle Light. So now I've got full bright on. Okay, so we've portalized, and if you're not seeing this texture here, that's because you're still in wireframe view. So let me show you how to get out of wireframe view mode. What you will do is right click within the 3D view, hold down the right mouse button, and select Solid World. That is what I'm currently on. So here's the little room that's already been made. Now, you're probably curious what the other settings in here are. I will go ahead and explain those. So wireframe brush, that's pretty much self-explanatory. Solo view, that's basically where you just, as it sounds, you just have that one view. So here it is. That's a really handy way if you are exploring through your level and you don't want to, you want the biggest possible view space without being impeded by the other views. So this is just a nice little handy way of increasing the size of that view to see the 3D view. Now to go out of that, you'll just right click, hold down the right mouse button again, and do unsolo. And now you're back to the 4 views. In addition to that, there is solid plus selection. What that does is that allows you to have a solid room, and then it adds a highlight, or basically it shows the brush outline. This is handy if, for example, you have a whole bunch of brushes already in your world, in your Dromed level, and you're trying to see what it is that you are actually currently selected on within the 3D view. So solid plus selection is very handy that way. And then solid plus all wireframe. That is basically every single brush within your 3D view you will not only see the solid geometry, any objects in your scene, you will also have the highlight on every single object. Now, if I go outside of this room, you get a black void again. This is because there is nothing outside of here. You have to create a room of some sort to be able to see anything. And it will go back to wireframe view when Garrett, the camera, is not in a room. But you'll see now, I go back into the room and there it is again. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is textures. You'll notice that there's a default texture here, and this is referred to as George, or I call it George, or Jorge, or you can call it whatever you'd like, but that's the default Dromed texture within the wall, within your air room, for any rooms that you create, or brushes that you create. Okay, so if you do Alt-T on your keyboard, you will bring up the texture palette. This is where you can select textures and then apply them, or just view them for the airbrushes in your scene. Now, because I do not have any texture families loaded, the only things in here are Sky and Jorge or George. So you basically have to import each family that you want to use. They call them families. So, for example, there's the city family, and that has all textures related to city stuff. So let's go ahead and add our first family. So we'll go to Textures, Add Family, and it'll bring up this pop-up. And let's just do City. Okay, so now bring up Alt-T again. And now you should have this window with a bunch of new textures in here. Now there should be a way to also add in the textures without having to type that in. Okay, it looks like in this Dromed, I don't have the menu set up to where it shows the different texture families. But anyway, here's the textures right here. So let's put Chris 04 onto this brush. So if you right click, you get a bunch of these options here. If you do assign to face, then it will select whatever face that you're currently selected on. It will apply that texture to it. Now, notice down here it says face default. This basically does all of the surfaces for the airbrush. So floor, the ceiling, the sides, all of it is with default. Now, if you go down here and hit the arrow, you can choose which face that you want to select. You want to apply the texture to. Let's undo. Okay, so now we're back to this. So I just want to put it on the north wall. I can double click and that will put the texture on that wall. Let's undo that. Or again, I can right click and say assign to face. So that's one way of applying the texture. Another way of applying the texture is using this slider, these arrow keys at the very bottom. So that way you can scroll through the different textures that you have in your family until you see the one that you want to use. Otherwise, you can open up the texture palette, which you can also find by going into editors, by the way, and selecting texture palette. So I'm going to just stick with this. We'll go and put it on default. Okay, so now I have a room that's completely covered with the CRIS04 texture. Okay, so now you've created you have your first room and you have it textured. But you may be wondering, how do I resize this room? It is a bit small. Well, if you recall from a previous tutorial that I've done, you have these settings down here, and DWH, that changes the dimensions of the object. So you can go in here and type them in manually, or you can drag, or you can use the arrows. I'm just going to do it manually. So let's change this to 25 by 25, and I'll keep the height at 16. Now you'll notice I have solid plus selection set, and you can see the new size. However, the room didn't change. The reason why is because I did not reportalize. So every time you change your brush or add a new brush, you will have to do portalize. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, so there it is. Now you can see that the room is a little bit bigger. Not by much, because I didn't make it that large. Okay, so you may also now be wondering, how do I have multiple rooms connected? Well, in order to do that, one thing you can do is you can either click clone, and that will make an exact copy of this room if you like the same dimensions and what you have on it. You can just do that and it will make a copy. And it will put it directly on top of the old one. So in order to move it, you'll have to use the X, Y, and Z and then move it aside. It will look like it hasn't done anything. Otherwise, you can go here where it says create and be on brush. And then you can just click and drag into the void here in one of the views. I typically create things through the top view. It's just easier. So, you see that I made a small little room. Okay, now to connect it, I'm going to use the Y axis and overlap the edges of the rooms here. Now, if this is a little too small for you, you can right click and do zoom in. That helps a lot. However, when you do that, it breaks the connection with the camera. So if you notice see the purple thing, that's the camera. It's no longer being followed in the top view. Just hold down right mouse and do sync all, and then it will sync it again. And you'll have to do that every time that you change the zoom. So I'm just going to zoom in here and do sync all. Okay. Now you can see here that this room is overlapping the other room. This is what we want in order to connect the two rooms. So let's go and portalize again. There you go. Now you have a second room. Feel free to go ahead and check out your work by doing Alt-G to go to game mode or going up to game and game mode. I'm not going to do that here now because of the software that I'm using. I can't do the full screen of the game view. So you can go ahead and try that now if you like. Once you are done, you will do Alt-E E to get out of game mode. And it will bring you back to the Dromed window. Alright, so let's go ahead and make a solid brush now. I'm going to switch to fill solid here, and let's choose a different texture. Let's see. I'll just use this one here, number 58. And I'm going to make this smaller. Set it to the floor. See if we can do floor. Okay, that doesn't work with these. You can only do that with actual objects. What I was trying to do is up here you see in under edit, there's wall, ceiling, and floor object. That just syncs it to whatever surface without you having to manually change the axes for the object. Okay, so we've created this little square box within our room. I'm going to make this a bit smaller. Try 4 and 4 and reportalize. And there you go. Now you will have a small little solid piece of geometry within the world. So I'm sure by now you are wanting to get into the more detailed aspect of level creation, which has to do with objects and light sources. Now let's see, I'm not sure why that did that there. Ah, okay. Somehow this accidentally got set to a solid. So if that ever happens, you can go in here and just go back to fill air, and let's go ahead and reportalize. Okay, and there's my room again. Now, for some reason, I also changed that, but I can go back like this. That's taking too long. I'll just go set that here. Okay. So let's go ahead and create a guard. So in order to bring up the object hierarchy, it's called, you can either go to Editors and select it here, or use the shortcut key of F5. So let's go ahead and do that. F5, go into Physical, Creature, Animal, Human, and then here we have Guard. Expand that. I'm just going to pick a standard grunt. So I'll pick the Sword Guard. And then you hit Create. Now you just click and drag within one of the viewports to create that AI within your scene. So this time I tried the front view. Okay, and now there he is. You can see him within your view, your 3D view. Floor me, you'll want to do that so he'll be synced with the floor. He'll actually be standing on the floor. And I'm going to move him. He's a little... I'd like him to be more towards the edge of the screen. So let's move this guy back. Move him over. Okay, so there's the Sword Guard in my level. Let's also go ahead and create some torches. And then that way we can see how lighting works, and we can turn off the full bright. So I'm going to hit F5 again. And what's great is in the New Dark patch, it adds this filter. So you can go in here and type, for example, guard, and it will only show things related to guard within the hierarchy. Very, very useful. Okay, so let's go back. I'm going to close Physical. Actually, no, I need that open. I'm going to go out of Creature. We'll scroll down and you'll see Lights. So let's create a standard torch. which unfortunately I don't actually... that's it. Extinguishable. Sorry. Okay, so let's do standard torch here. Create. I'm going to put that in here. Move it up. And let's do edit wall object. Very nice. Now I will move that over a bit. That's actually a bit high, so I'm going to bring that back down. Alright, so we got a torch there. That won't be enough though, so I'm going to hit clone. That way I don't have to go back into the object hierarchy and create another one. And I'm going to change its rotation. Let's do 90 and set it to this wall here. The left wall, there we go. I'll clone again. This time I will do the opposite. So 270, I think it is. Yes, that's it. Edit wall object. No, that's not the wall I wanted. It put it in that room. It's actually, it did do what I want, but I didn't realize that there was that. I forgot about that room, and so it put it in there. Actually, I'm going to move this over so that it's on this wall. Here we go. Edit wall object. Okay, and one more for good measure. I'm going to put that into here. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out here. Sync all. Actually, no. 0. Okay, wall object again. Alright. Now, there's a separate calculation you have to do for lights. You don't have to portalize if all you've edited is light sources. So if you want to update the light within a level, first of all, let me turn off full bright. Look at that nice light there. We got the colored lighting in Dromed 2, which is great. Thief 1's Dromed didn't have that. So anyway, I will go into Tools and select Light. And there we go. I've recalculated the light. Excuse me. So now if you'd like to go back in again, Alt-G, and check out how that lighting is done, feel free to do so. And again, Alt-E to go out of game mode. Alright, so now we've got an AI in our level, we've got a piece of geometry, and we have some torches. I'm actually going to move this into the center of the room, and what I'm going to do is have this guard patrol around this solid brush. I'm going to teach you how to make a guard patrol around the room, but we won't get to that just yet. So I'm going to portalize again, which also calculates lighting as well, so that's handy. Okay, so we have this set up. And you'll notice so far when you've been going into game mode that it puts you wherever the camera is currently looking. This is because we have not set up Garrett yet, which is the next thing that I want to do before we conclude the first part of this tutorial. So, we'll go back to the object hierarchy again, F5, and we'll go into F-Nord. For Nord, go into marker, and we will create... Actually, we're just going to select marker and hit create. Okay. I'm going to have Garrett start in this smaller room here. You want to make sure that he is a significant amount above the floor. The marker is a significant amount along the z-axis above the floor. Excuse me. That way, when you go into game mode, you won't be in the floor. So the next thing you want to do is, let's go to properties, Actually, let's not do that. We'll do that in the next video. So instead we're going to do links. That will bring up this. You'll go to add. This is basically how you set up certain sort of like scripts between objects. So we're going to do contains link from a marker and to, and this is where you would type in the number of an object, for example, or the name of an object. We want to directly, since I don't know the numbering for Garrett, I'm just going to go ahead and manually type in Garrett. He's within the object hierarchy somewhere. So Garrett, and there we have this. Okay. So now when you go into game mode, you should actually have Garrett set up, and you will spawn at the marker instead of at the camera. You'll want to make sure that the convict script is loaded. I believe with the new Dark, the convict script is already set. Basically, the convict script is the basic script that has general things, but one of which is the victory checks setting. That way, so once you've set up Garrett, if you die, then it will go to the black screen and, it'll show the skull and crossbones. So if you don't have convict, you can't have the health shields, you can't have Garrett set up properly. So you have to have the convict script. Now, to load scripts, we can go to custom and then load script. So it has in here the basic ones, convict and Jinn. And Dromed 2, in addition to convict, there's also Jinn. I'm not really sure what Jinn is, but I would go ahead and load both of these just to be safe. And then, of course, you can load another script, a third-party script or some other script. Alright, so that concludes the first video. In my next video, we will finish working on the starting point, and we will set up the AI to actually walk around the room. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll stay tuned in, and I hope that this was useful.